And we're going live on the Rebbe's talk. We learned this sikh, I think, before, maybe even more than once. It's a well-known talk of the Rebbe on Lag BaOmer from the year 1950, which means this is prior to the Rebbe officially accepting leadership. And this is a few months after the passing of his father-in-law, the previous Lubavitch Rebbe. So this is a sikha on the talk of the night of Lag BaOmer, the year Tafshin Yud, which is 1950. So the Rebbe says like this: Al pi Maimer Azal, based on what our rabbis have taught us. There is nothing that happens, especially within Torah, within the schedule of Judaism, that doesn't have a hint in the Torah, even if it doesn't have a direct instruction or idea, but there's definitely a hint in the Torah about everything that happens. Moving from that is understood. We have to find that there's a hint, especially of the importance and the greatness of the holiday of Lag BaOmer, although the reason why we celebrate Lag BaOmer happened well after the Torah was given, but there has to be a hint in the Torah as well. The Torah HaChasidus and the teachings of Chasidus, Huvo Shnei Ramazim al Lag BaOmer. It presents two hints in the Torah that we could find the idea of Lag BaOmer. One being the pasuk in the verse that says, Ad Hagal Hazeh, in the meeting between Yaakov and his father-in-law Lavan, at the end of Parsha Vayetze, when they make a treaty between each other. So they say that this Gal, which is this heap of stones, is going to be the symbol of our commitment to each other and the agreement that we made and the truce that we made. The word Gal is a heap, but it also is the letters of 33. Lamed is 30 and Gimel is 3, so it's 33 is the hint of Lag BaOmer. And there's another verse that says, Gal Eini va'abita niflos mitarasecha. The idea of Gal Eini, lifting up one's eyes to see the wonders of the Torah. And the word Gal that says twice is the number value and the same letters as Lag BaOmer. Eshana. So we're just starting. V'yesh leimar. So the hint in Torah to the concept of Lag BaOmer is the pasuk Ad Hagal Hazeh. Gal is again Lamed Gimel, and Gal Einei Va'abita Niflaos Mitarasecha, which is also the word Gal. V'yesh leimar, the Rebbe says, Shebezeh merumah gam goydel ha'hechrech delimin va'afatzas Taras HaChasidus. From this is also understood the fact that there's a hint, and we're going to see what the Rebbe means. The importance of learning, and not just learning, but spreading the teachings of Chassidus, which is in Yanish Lag BaOmer. That's the idea of Lag BaOmer. The Rashbi, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, is the author of the Zohar and the teacher of the secrets and the secrets of the secrets of Torah, which is what Chassidus is Matan Torah the Pnimis Torah, because Lag BaOmer is the day, so to say, of the giving of the secrets of Torah. On the day of his passing is when he taught most of his inner secrets. Specifically in our times, how important it is to spread the teachings of Chassidus. And the Rebbe explain. What is the connection between the hints to Lag BaOmer in the verse Ad Hagal Hazeh or Gal Einai Va'abita Niflaos Mitarasecha to the spreading of Chassidus? So it says like this: Hagal Hazeh or Ad Hagal Hazeh or Gal Hazeh Ad. The idea of this heap that Lavan and Yaakov made as a symbol of their truce. Nemar was said, Kasher Lavan hisig es Yaakov. When Lavan chases Yaakov, he reaches him in his pursuit. Virot ve'achar, as he pursues him. Sha'az, and after you could say, kind of a little bit of a confrontation, not a physical one, but a strong exchange of words. So then it says, Vayikcha avanim. So then they took stones, Vayasu gal, and they made a heap. The difference between a gal and a wall is organized stones. Gal is just like a heap of stones in the field. Vayikra Lavan, and Lavan, the father-in-law, called it Yigar Shahadusa, which is the translation of Aramaic, I guess, of a heap of stones, and Yaakov called it Gal Eid. Hagal Hazeh Eid. This heap is going to be a testimony, from the word Eid is testimony, to the agreement they made. Neither of us will cross this heap to pursue each other. Especially Yaakov was saying Lavan was trying to hurt Yaakov, so they made a truce. Lavan's going to go to the east of the heap, and Yaakov is going to continue southwest towards Eretz Yisrael. V'hinei, v'inyan redifas Lavan acher Yaakov. What is the idea that Lavan pursued and chased Yaakov? Right. So this the story. Of course, Yaakov is the son-in-law, nephew. He married his 4 daughters, has a whole bunch of kids, his grandchildren. After they divide the money and he gets his pay, Lavan becomes jealous, and Yaakov feels he has to leave. So then he chases him. So Isa b'Sfarim, what's behind this chasing? That Lavan chases Yaakov. So in Sfarim, in books, it's brought down. Shatam amitihu. What's the true reason why Lavan chases Yaakov? Like if he shadama Lavan sharaydef acher Yaakov kedei lahara lechatzram. It's not even what Lavan thought. That Lavan in his consciousness thought he's going to pursue Yaakov to hurt him. That was his plan in his consciousness. Ella lefi shebesim avedase shel Yaakov b'charon. But the real inner reason, the pneumistic reason of why Lavan ran after Yaakov was because when Yaakov finishes his service, means the purpose of his being in Charan, which was the elevation of all the sparks and impurities and darkness of Lavan and Charan, the city, the area. Nishru etza Lavan itzutzes kedusha shadayin lo nisbaro de Yaakov. The real reason, but even if Lavan was unaware of this reason, but why Lavan pursues Yaakov is because there was a few more sparks when Yaakov left in a rush, so to say, that weren't yet refined and engaged by Yaakov. L'chein radaf Lavan acher Yaakov, therefore Lavan chases Yaakov. Litin lai nitzitzis hakedushas achrein, it's the last holy sparks that were by Lavan. Then afterwards they make a heap. Shenishretz, like that's by him. Kadei sheyigmar bir v'halas nitzitzis hakdosha, so that Yaakov could complete his avodah. We know that Yaakov, when he left Lavan, was and those 20 years that he was by Lavan, 22 years on the road, he was ready to. He figured that he's ready for Mashiach. Mashiach is to refine, gather all the sparks, and take and transform all the negative into positive. And he figured he did that, especially after his engagement with Lavan. What does this mean today in our times? So that happened then with Lavan and Yaakov. So and as in a comparison to our times, which is our times meaning, i.e., ikfis ad Mashiach, where the generation of the heel meaning just as the entry point of Mashiach coming is about to come. As my father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, says about the days that we're holding now. Mr. Rebbe is talking 1950, but that's an extended period of time from 1950 to 1980 to 2025. Mashiach is standing just on the wall, ready to come in. That after we've completed the refinement of Nitzutzis HaKadushais, of the holy sparks, B'chol HaGaliyos, in all the exiles, the Galus HaAchron, into this final exile in all the areas. Tzarech liyasbir haNitzutzis Achi Achronim. What's left, just like Lavan came back, chased Yaakov for the last few sparks, so too till today we have those last few sparks. Just like when Yaakov and the Beis Yaakov, the house of Yaakov, meaning his wives and his children, so as they're leaving, they needed the last few sparks. And then when we finish the refinement of these last few sparks, then it will come about the promise, the assurance that we've had from our prophets and from the Rebbes in the generations of Esruach Hatuma Avrim min Aretz, that when we get rid of the last sparks and we separate the last sparks from that are giving life to unholiness, so then there will be no life source for the Ruach Tuma, for the spirit of impurity, and therefore will be eliminated from the world. With the coming V'bias Mashiach Tzedkenu b'meher imenu, with the coming of Mashiach, speed in our time. So the Rebbe says, "V'kivin shenimtzayim b'sim hagalus," because now we're holding the end of the galus. Umevarim hanitzutzes v'achi achreinim, and we're out and refining the last few left sparks, and we could see what happened since 1950 to now. How many places of Yiddishkeit and of all kinds of Yiddishkeit, especially Bati Chabad, Chabad houses all over the world, and Shluchim all over the world, and communities all over the world, gathering all those last sparks. is moving Gadol Hechrich Begilu Afatzis Pnimis Atara. So it's important because we're holding the end of the Gullus and gathering the last sparks. We have to get ready right now to bring in the teachings and to spreading the teachings and the inner teachings of Torah, Pnimis Torah. So the Rebbe is basically addressing the question: what's the urgency today to teach Primus Torah or to spread Primus Torah more than generations before that? We don't see that there was an urgency, and even in past generations, there was a prohibition against studying and teaching, especially publicly, the teachings of the inner secrets of Torah. So the Rebbe explains the idea. In the previous generations, there was the possibility or the argument that one could make that we could just push it off. In Yiddish, he uses the word uplegen, push it off for another time. To learning the learning and spreading of the teachings of the inner secrets of Torah, using the argument that the secrets of Torah is for the righteous people, for the holy people, for the Kaddish people, for the people that the Rashbis of the world, the tzaddikim, Bali Madrega, people on lofty levels. Although the Rebbe says that even then that wasn't really a truthful claim, that the teachings of the inner teachings of Torah and Chassidus is only for lofty people. It's not true. But specifically in our times. When holding leaving Charan. Charan is like we learned in Chassidus many times. Charan is the anger of the world. It's also the restrictions of the world. So when we're leaving Charan, the Galus, the exile, to the Geula, to the redemption, and what's left only is the last few sparks that are out there. Now we have there's no excuse to push it off. We have to spread the teachings of the inner secrets of Torah in such a way, even the most simple people, should be starting Chassidus. We see that's happened over the Rebbe's guidance the past 75 years. The spread of Chassidus, and specifically in the past 20 years, has spread in a way that's never been before. And as we found, the Rebbe says, the Rebbe is now bringing a few months after the passing in the shiv, and still the yard site in the year of Avelis of his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe. So he says, like we saw the institutions and the works of my father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, when it comes to the spreading of Chassidus in the later generations, means in his later years, and especially in America. So the Rebbe explains, HaBaal Shem Tov HaMagid, the founders of the teachings of Chassidus, the founder being the Baal Shem Tov and his student the Magid, Pa'alu, they were effective. V'gilui, Klolis HaShaychus B'nim Satari L'chol B'nai Yisrael. They brought down the idea of the revelation of the secrets of Torah to the Jewish people. Admar Azak, and what the Alter Rebbe add to that? So the Rebbe says, the Admar Azak and Parah, the Alter Rebbe added, V'gila, and revealed, Shigam HaSagas B'nim Satari Shayachus L'chol B'nai Yisrael. So he says that the Alter Rebbe brought it that not just that to bring, so to say, the influence of Chassidus, the spirit of Chassidus, that changed the spirit of the Jewish people. The Alter Rebbe brought down to Hasagas Pnimis Torah, that one should comprehend, a person should sit down on a sefer, a book of Chassidus, and understand teachings of Chassidus, not just the influence that the teachings give by the Talmidi of the Tzaddikim or the Tzaddikim themselves. The Leik Hashita Shahaisim Kabelas Adas, unlike the opinion by other Hasidic dynasties and rabbis, Shetzadik b'menasa yichya, alter kir yichya elechaya. They understood. They learned the verse that says that tzaddik b'menasa yichya, that the tzaddik gives, that the tzaddik b'menasa in his belief he lives. See, so they say alter kir yichya don't say that he lives, but yichaya he gives life. That the tzaddik is the one who learns Chassidus, connected to the inner secrets, and Yechayan, he gives life to his Chassidim. But in Chabad that wasn't accepted. The Alter Rebbe says that the tzaddik will teach you, but you have to learn. You have to understand yourself. And the Rebbe says, the previous Rebbe took it even further, that he didn't just teach lofty ideas to lofty levels of students, The previous Rebbe took the high, deep teachings of Chassidus and brought it down to practical, easy language for even the most simple-minded person to understand the teachings of Chassidus. Like the Rebbe says in the past few years, I was actually just talking about this with someone. The previous Rebbe printed Chassidus in Yiddish that was not regular. Chassidus, although it was said in Yiddish, was printed in Lashon HaKodesh, in the Holy Tongue. The previous Rebbe printed in Yiddish. Yiddish then was a language of the common person. Even people that weren't necessarily openly Shomer Torah mitzvah spoke Yiddish in the war in the old country. The Frierdiker Rebbe printed in the early years in America. The Frierdiker Rebbe printed the Maimarim to be in Yiddish, so people who don't understand Lashon HaKodesh and do understand Yiddish could understand. And he wrote it in a way for the most limited, knowledgeable people in the teachings of Torah and Chassidus. And why did he do that? Because to get the last sparks, right? The last slivers are the hardest to get. When you pick up a big piece of glass, that's even though that piece of glass could be a big part of the jug, let's say, that breaks, but that's easy to pick up. To pick up a tiny sliver, and the way you get the tiny slivers is you have to go out there and use the light of Chassidus. And you can't use the light of Chassidus in a language that's not understood, because the spark won't understand that language. So you have to speak in Yiddish. And today the Rebbe translated it in English and Italian and Russian, all languages. No language you can't
Ladino or Spanish.
Ladino, Spanish, exactly. So the Rebbe says, because we're holding to get the last sparks. To effect to bring a Mashiach. The Rebbe says, to get these last sparks, you got to take out all the weapons. Go out there for the most complex weapons of taking the teachings of Chassidus in any language to get these sparks. And through this, we'll bring the master, the King Mashiach. The Rebbe continues, we could add, what is the connection? So we said, but the initial connection between the necessity for teachings of Chassidus to the Gal is just like Lavan brought the last sparks to Yaakov, so too we have to bring the last sparks with the Lag, which is the 33rd day of the Omer, which is represented by the teachings of Pnimis Torah. But the Rebbe says there's another connection. The Rebbe says like this, that Afal Pi, although Shebishvil Avodas HaBirurim, for us to go out there and engage the world and elevate the world and separate goodness from badness, holiness from things that are unholy, purity from impurity. Ubefrat birur hanitzitzas hachi tachtonim, and how do we get those lowest slivers, those lowest sparks? Tzarach hamevarer, the person who's going out there, Yaakov, who's the one who's refining, who's separating. Leirad v'lislabish levushi hamizbar lavan. You can't talk down to people. You need to get in eye contact with them. You need to be at their level, not obviously in compromise, but you have to be approachable, and you have to be able to, that they should feel that they could have a communication with you. Yaakov has to lower himself and enclothe himself in certain ways in the garments of Lavan. Mikol makam tzarich li.
Can't even get close to the radical Muslims are intent on wiping out the Jews. So
we're not talking about dealing with those. That's a different kind of tumah. I'm talking about the tumah that has sparks of holiness. I'm not sure there's any sparks of holiness there. But the idea is you have to get into the clothing and the garments of Lavan. So you could have a common language, you could talk to them, you could get those sparks. But in order to do that, there has to be a precaution. Because when you lower yourself and get into the garments of Lavan, the concern is you may get caught by Lavan. It's not a sure thing that you're gonna be able to pull him out of holiness. He may pull you into impurities. And therefore the Rebbe says, there has to be a separation. While you're down in his garments to try to bring him out, there has to be boundaries. That the person getting refined doesn't in return affect in a negative way the person who's doing the refinement. That's why they build this heap of stones. That although they're having a conversation, although there's an engagement, we have to know that you could go out there, wear the garments, all the things you have to do to get involved with love and to bring him out. But you have that gal, you have that heap of stones. There's a boundary to know that you don't pass certain things, you don't break the law, you don't cross certain paths. Ani loy aver lecha, I'm not going all the way over to you. Va'ata loy savar alai lera, and you're going to come to me, but not to hurt me. That's what Yaakov says, lera, for bad. Yesh sarchis asik b'nyanei olam. Yeah, the Rebbe is starting off his campaign for engagement, shlichus, going out to the world, but there has to be, you have to know that, yes, you have a chabaras, yes, you're all the way out in the middle of nowhere, but there's a gal around you, not in separating you, but protecting what's the importance of what to give the focus of what you're doing there. You're not there just to be there, you're there for a job, for a mission. You have to go out to the world. Achila, and each person in their own, everyone. It's not just, the Rebbe's not just talking to the Shliach. The Rebbe's talking to every single person that goes out every single morning to the world. You wake up, you go out to the world. You are a mevarer. You're going out there. The reason you're going out to the world, to your jobs, everyone in their places, is to be a mevarer, to go separate and engage in sparks and bring them out. There's tiny little slivers all over the place. You're the mizbar, you're the person who's doing it. So you go out to the world, achila, you go out and you eat, shtia, you drink, and other things that are regular that everyone else does. Each person goes out, not just to engage outside space, but inside space. You also have the animal within you, the body, the nefesh bahamis, your place of influence. Chelkei ba'olam means the part that God gave you and says, these are the places that you're going to have influence in the world. Aval b'shas mais at the same time. So you're out there like in the clothing of Lavan. There has to be in such a way. Although you're there and out there and engaging, but there's also that gal that separates, the heap that separates from the coarseness of the world. Leida, a person has to know. Aside for the reason that you're there in order to engage and elevate those sparks, there's no real equal level there. Having those boundaries in your mind, even if your engagement is with yourself, but you're not going out there and working with your body and your nefesh bahamis and your places of influence in order to be affected, but to be effective, not to be affected by them. And therefore, you won't get affected by the world when you have this gal, this heap of stones as a reminder. On the contrary, they don't make you a vessel of unholiness, you make the world a vessel of godliness. That God took, what did Yaakov say to Rachel and Leah? That the cattle that belonged to Lavan, that were in Lavan's world, right? The cattle represents the physicality, the behemoth, the animal that's out there in the world that belonged to Lavan. Now v'yitinli, God gave it to me. Now it becomes Yaakov's cattle, holy cattle. It's cattle, that doesn't change. It's the world. But the world becomes a vessel for holiness. So how does a person make an inner heap of stones as a monument to remind him and her of that? Although you're out in the world, you're going to affect the world and not be affected by the world. So where do you get the strength to make the gal? The gal itself, and the gal is a reminder, but where do you have the strength to make the gal, to make the heap of stones, that monument that's going to remind you? That's specifically through the powers of the inner secrets of Torah. When a person learns the secrets of Torah, Chassidus, it's talking about, and it brings awareness and understanding. What is Torah talking? What's Chassidus talking about? There's nothing else but God. We're going to learn and learn and learn and find out that higher and higher, at the end of the day, it's all Soviv Kolamim, and higher than Soviv Kolamim, and higher than the encompassing light and the essence, and everything is just the creation, it's a facade, that there's nothing, Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing else but God. And when you have that focus of Ein Od Milvado, that helps you to build a gal, to build a monument, to remind you that you're out to affect the world, not be affected by the world. That the truth of it is, what does it mean, Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing else but God? Those things that you see as things that are separate or have separate agendas, that's not true. If you go back to the source of everything, everything is godliness. There's nothing that exists outside of God. By days, when a person has that focus and hakara and awareness, then you use that as a way to actually reveal the truth in the world. What is the truth in the world? That's all godliness, and make it a vessel to reveal godliness. Until the completeness of this revelation that's going to be with the coming of the day of Mashiach. And this is done through the teachings and the spreading of the secrets of Torah. Like it says about the days of Mashiach, the God is going to reveal himself. And the basar, the material, the flesh, is going to see that's the word of God that it exists. That's one idea of the Gal, that the Gal is the monument that helps a person stay focused on our mission in the world in every part of our engagement, whether it's with ourselves, our body, our nefesh habahamis, our place of influence, our communities of influence that we influence, etc. Another idea of the Gal, v'oidinim begal, v'kesher v'shachs l'yom Lag BaOmer, to the idea of Lag BaOmer. Again, the word Gal means like a heap of stones with it's the same letters and number value, of course. It's the same letters of 33, the 33rd day of the Omer. That he says, Gal nasim avanim. Like I said before, how do you make a heap of stones? Through stones. That the sons of Yaakov took Yaakov took the stones and made this heap of stones as a monument. What's the idea of a heap of stones? So we learned about this many times in Chassidus, especially in the teachings of the Mittler Rebbe. And the Mittler Rebbe is very much connected to Lag BaOmer, like the Yom Yom of today, of all the miracles that he would perform in the fields on Lag BaOmer. What are stones that is used to make this gal, this heap? That we know that in Chassidus and Sefer Yetzirah teaches us in Kabbalah that stones are words and letters. What's the idea? The idea of the stones is not in the letters itself. Letters on their own has no meaning, and letters not only doesn't have any meaning, it doesn't have any certain meaning. Same letters are used for anything, any communication, any words can either make sense, not make sense, and even if it makes sense, doesn't necessarily mean it has to make holy sense. So the letters themselves is like a stone which has Kabbalah salt. That the stones, that the nekuda, the point of stone, like Evan, is the lowest level of domem, of lifelessness, is because on its own it's just a stone. You could use the letters to form words and ideas, but on their own they're just stones. So therefore, the idea is, and that's why, I don't know if he says it here, but definitely in the teachings of the Mittler Rebbe, that's why they didn't make a wall. Because the wall is organized letters. Organized letters is arguments. You're going to argue with love on these words that say, this is your side of the monument, this is my side of the monument, this is what we're not going to do. When you make a heap of stones like a heap of letters, they're jungled up together. It's like before you play, it's like playing Scramble. There's a whole bunch of letters, there's nothing that makes sense. So that's just that these are letters that can do something. Right now, it's just the Kabbalah salt. I mean, it's not because you arguing with yourself, not to you have to argue with yourself, not to, so to say, fall a victim to the what you're trying to engage, but engage it. But you have Kabbalah salt, you accept this is what has to happen. How do we separate? Holiness from unholiness is not through arguing, but this is the fact. This is, you accept the yoke. This is the way it has to be. This is why the heap is connected to Lag BaOmer. I've talked about this many years. What is the Omer counting of tonight of Lag BaOmer is Hod Shebahod, acknowledgement of acknowledgement. When you acknowledge something, it's not because you own it, meaning to say own it in your mind. You really understand it, because then you don't have to acknowledge it. You know it. The difference between knowing something and acknowledging something is knowing is because you know it, therefore that's the way it is. When you acknowledge Moedim Anachnu Lach, you acknowledge it even though you don't know it. And therefore the Lag BaOmer is Hod Shebahod. Hod Gufa Hod Shebahod. Acknowledgement of acknowledgement. Al Sha'anu Moedim Lach. There's no understanding, but this is the way it is. Is that we need the Kabbalah salt. And the point of it is, the Rebbe says the next year, 1951, that therefore in Lag BaOmer, that specifically, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, that he's the highest level of understanding, goes all the way to the lowest level, penetrates within the person's acknowledgement of acknowledgement. Sicha Lag BaOmer b'Tavshin Aleph, in the year Lag BaOmer, on Lag BaOmer in the year 1941, Tavshin Aleph is 1941. My father-in-law said, Lag BaOmer hu b'Sfiras HaTiferes. that we just said Lag BaOmer is the sphera that we count for Hod of Hod. And on 1941, the previous Rebbe says Lag BaOmer is the sphera of Tiferes, of beauty, which is a high level of the spheros. It's the torso. And of Tiferes is Tiferes of Tiferes. Al PSA the spheres because it all depends how you count. If you start counting, you refine from bottom up, you go to the lowest point of yourself, your character. Malchus Sheba Malchus, the communication of the communication, the engage, the most outer part of yourself, and refine that and build upwards all the way to the last day being Chesed of Chesed. So then Lag BaOmer will be Tiferes of Tiferes. If is the way we count it, and you're counting it from starting from your highest point and bringing it the light down to the lowest point, so then it's Hod Shebahod. So in the Sicha of Tafshin Aleph, 1941, the previous Rebbe pointed out that in the way you look at it the other direction, starting from the bottom up, so then Lag BaOmer is Tiferes of Tiferes. Al PSA did the Sphere Summer and Malmata L'mayla. Malchus of Malchus, starting on the first night of your lowest point, kingship of kingship. The reason why kingship is the lowest point, it's most disconnected from yourself. Like it says, a king is merumam, is elevated, separate. It's not. It has when a person sees a king, the person only sees the rule, doesn't understand the person. Who's that person? Who's the person behind that rule? You saw each of malchus, and from there you go to the second night, which is connection of kingship, etc. V'chein hala. Apiza lag BaOmer hu tveres b'teres. In that way of counting, so lag BaOmer is the beauty of beauty. What is the difference of how you look at the spheres Omer? Is it milmayla lamata, from above down, which is the way we focus primarily, which is starting from chesed, our highest point, bringing down, refining our highest point until it penetrates all the way to our lowest point. Mitzad giluyim inyani havodah shapitam v'das. So mitoch havan v'saga v'tayni geshmak. So if you're starting from above down, so that's the idea of the avoda, which is logical, tam v'das, understanding, and geshmak, and enjoyment, which means that you're starting off from chesed of chesed. There you're feeling God, the love of God, the love you have for God, the love for those who love God, and then bringing it all the way down. So you're bringing the light down. It's starting from a high point, or milmata l'mayla, but if you're starting from above that, from below up. Meaning that, how do you inspire yourself at your lowest point to start doing avoda? How could the lowest part of yourself that has the least light of your soul, so to say, that's shining within you, is at the lowest point, is malchus of malchus? How do you get that how do you start working from that angle on self-refinement, on shining, bringing the shine in your life? That's a Kabbalah soul. You have to start accepting the yoke. I mean, you're doing it because this is what you have to do, even though you're not feeling it yet, because you didn't get to your feelings yet. You're not servicing God from understanding, comprehension, and enjoyment, because you didn't get to enjoyment. Enjoyment is right before Shavuos, is on the 49th day. You start working on yourself because this is what has to be done. So there's different ways to look at it in the avoda. If you're starting from the place of your highest point, and refining that, strengthening that, enhancing that, encouraging that, and pushing that downwards to the lower level, until you get to the 49th level. And then by the time you get to the 49th level, you've brought that pleasure and understanding into the lowest level. Or you start with Kabbalah Sol because you have no life. I mean life, no chayis, no excitement, because you're at your lowest point, but you're doing it anyways because that's what Hashem wants. Then there's values in each way of avoda. So how do we understand the two avodas? Because the avodah that we're starting from the top, from the place of chayas, the place of life, of excitement, starting from the highest point of our character, chesed shebechesed. So then Lag BaOmer is the Hod shebahod. It reaches all the way down to the acknowledgement of an acknowledgement. That means when we reach the point in ourselves, the only way we could still stay connected is be acknowledged that we have to acknowledge. We don't even know that we have that we don't even have a comprehension in the acknowledgement. So that's one way of Lag BaOmer. Api say the from above down. Or is Lag BaOmer the beauty of beauty? Api say the when you're coming upwards. But that means that at the time of Lag BaOmer, you've reached the higher point. So to say, one of the most essential points within yourself, the beauty within the beauty of your character. So you've reached that level on going upwards. Shekasher avoidi ba'ofen shel hayda mitzat kabbalas ol bevad. Hoyche behoid. Aideza dafka boim litachlis ha'ili v'yoyfet fershe b'tferes. And see, the Rebbe explains that what does it mean that the previous Rebbe is emphasizing that Lag BaOmer's Tfersh B'Tferes is not because he's focusing that there's a way to just look at it starting from below upwards, and Lag BaOmer is the highest of days, the beauty within the beauty of myself. It's the beauty of when you want to come to an understanding who you are and what's beautiful about you and your inner beauty of your character. That's the day of Lag BaOmer. How do you get that shine? How do you get that realization of what's really beautiful about you is when you're able to penetrate that you're even the level that's hod shebahod, that the only way you're connected is that you acknowledge that you need to acknowledge, and you do that, then you reveal that you have your inner beauty. When you're able to take the lowest point in yourself, but that you're holding the point, like the Rebbe says in the Maimer the next year, that after that, it's the nachash, it's the snake. The last point, the kedusha, in your character, so to say, is acknowledging that I have to acknowledge, because after that, you don't even acknowledge. And when you're able to bring light and purpose and elevation in your acknowledgement of acknowledgement, then that's the real beauty of who you are. Means if a person finds their inner beauty only in the easy things or the holy things about themselves or the positive things about themselves, that's not real beauty. The real beauty of your beauty is specifically finding godliness and connecting in your hod shebahod, in your acknowledgement of acknowledgement. So that's what he's saying over there. When you're able to just, this is the yoke, this is what I have to do. I'm acknowledging that I have to acknowledge that there's a Hashem, that there's an avodah, that there's a purpose in my life. That is your inner beauty. That is how you get to the beauty of who you are. From this, we can also learn about how a person has to be. And this, the Rebbe goes into the continuation of this Fabring, into the idea of iskashrus, of how a person is supposed to connect to a Rebbe. When it comes to connecting to a Rebbe, when the Rebbe gives us strength, that's the job of Rebbe. Rebbe's job is to show each one of us the tools that we have. Open up our tool shed and say, these are the tools that you have to get the job done. So the Rebbe says, when you're given something, you're given it with a good eye, not a begrudging eye. That's the most beautiful part of who you are. You want to be the person that should be able to receive from the Rebbe the tools that you have and you need to do what you needed to do. It's like hod shebahod comes first, then comes Tferes b'Tferes. First, you have to be connected to the Rebbe with Kabbalah soul, unconditionally. You don't have a conditional relationship with the Rebbe. When it's an unconditional relationship with the Rebbe, so then the kol hanaisim b'ayin yafin nice, and then you're given all the tools in a way that's your real beauty. Hod shebahod. To find your beauty, you has to start with Kabbalah soul. Rebbe naisim b'ayin yafin. The Rebbe gives. The Rebbe says, with a good eye, with a kind eye. Even those who are not worthy. Some people don't even have the right to open their own tool shed. Again, the Rebbe always said, he's not giving you things you don't have. You have them inside you. You just don't you don't have the key to open your own tool shed, your own garage to find the tools you need to get the job done. And some people don't have the right to even demand that key. They've given up the right to open up their tool shed, so to say. The Rebbe says, "Gam leil she'enim roim, aval I efshel tfeimer Rebbe levad loy lasis muma nit reintrinken kein Finger in kalte Wasser chayivim lahascha ba'avoide b'koich atzma." Let's start again. A Rebbe noisim ba'ayin yafi gam leil she'enim roim. The Rebbe gives in a good eye, even if you're not worthy. Aval I efshel tfeimer Rebbe, but in the same time, even though the Rebbe gives you, even though you're not worthy, but you can't just demand, Rebbe, give me. Levad loy lasis muma, but I'm not doing anything myself. You have to help me. The Rebbe says in Yiddish, Nita reintrinken, kein Finger in kalte Wasser. I'm not ready to put even a small finger in cold water. That's uncomfortable for me. The Rebbe says, you have to start with yourself. With the Kabbalah soul, start going out and doing the job. Then the Rebbe gives you, according to his abilities, to help you do amazing things. Which is much above than what you could even imagine you would do. And we see the Hatzlacha. When a person is ready to go Kabbalah Sol, this was a yesod by the Rebbe all the years. The Rebbe didn't take a person and say, here's a first class ticket, and here's a $1 million budget, and go out and build a Chabad house. There's a lot of things, and each person within their own life. You can't just say, Rebbe, you're a Rebbe, you have to give me. Of course, the Rebbe's going to give, and he wants to give. But you have to start the process yourself. Go out there to the world, work on yourself, and then you're going to see that your abilities to perform and to get the job done is way beyond your expectations. The Rebbe says, "B'ACC is Mitzrayim, when the Jewish people left Egypt. Then God just did it on his own. The Jewish people weren't worthy. There was no need for the Jewish people to inspire God, to awaken within God, and it also wasn't possible yet because they didn't get the Torah. To do a Sirus al-Tata, an awareness from below, to inspire God's reaction. God took initiation by Yetzias Mitzrayim. He schlepped us out of Golus. Once the Torah was given, Nikva HaSeder, from then God said, this is the way things are done. Going forward. Pesach is Pesach. But going forward, the established idea was, Shekol inyanim tzrichim lav dafka. There's no free trips. You have to do avoid, you have to engage, you have to do the work. And when you start doing the work, you're going to see the successes even beyond your expectations, even beyond the abilities you thought you had within yourself. But once you start the avodah, then you're going to see how what you're being given from above is so much more than the actual response. I mean, the person says, I barely have oxygen, I barely have, how could you expect me to avoid that? I don't have anything within me to get the job done. You just start doing. And then God's going to give you in a way that's way beyond what you think your abilities are. This is something that's not just an idea. It's been proven over and over and over again in different people's, couples' successes in themselves and in communities and places that needed to be engaged. And like the famous story gives an example. As our rabbis have taught us, the story, when the holy Rebbe Chanina ben Dosa in the time of the Second Temple, he found a very precious stone, or a beautiful stone, that he wanted to bring as a donation to the temple, to Jerusalem. But he was very poor. He didn't have a crew that he traveled with, and he was alone, and the stone was not possible for one person to carry. So God sent a group of angels. So he could have just said, okay, Chevra, no, pick up the stone and take it to Jerusalem. The angel said, no. The angels told Rebbe Chanina ben Dosa, you have to just put a finger. What can you do with a finger? How could a finger pick up a stone? You have to put in a little effort. To just stand there and think the angels are going to carry the stone for you, it doesn't work like that. He gave his hand, he gave his finger, even though that there's no logic that that's going to help. And then they were standing in Jerusalem with the stone. But a little bit you have to do on your own. So too in our situation. You have to give over to the Rebbe with Kabbalah Sol, with your unconditional acceptance of the yoke, above your understanding, your acknowledgement of acknowledgement, and then you're going to see Tfer Shebetferes. When the Rebbe sees, the Rebbe's job is to see every single chassid, that every single chassid is out there in the world and is trying to do their job with themselves, with their place of influence. This is applicable to every single person. There's no one that's exempt from avoda. When the Rebbe sees, you put your hand out there, you went there, you're committed to the job. Then your acknowledgement of acknowledgement, which is your lowest point, is not just your greatest shine, your greater beauty, but your greater beauty with strength, with accomplishments, because you're going to see you're going to be able to accomplish great, amazing things. And just see if I don't have my second chavrusa now, so we could go a little bit further if the crowd is ready to stay a little longer. Let's go a little bit further, and I'm going to finish off the sicha. The Rebbe says like this: you do what's known. The Mittel Rebbe. Hayinoig had a custom, and this is today's a Yom Yom. Lag BaOmer latzis l'sada. He would go out to the field. The Jewish people saw many miracles. The Chassidim saw many miracles when the Mittel Rebbe went out to the fields, specifically in Megel and Nashim Akaris for barren women. That the Mittel Rebbe would give blessings to women who couldn't have children. That he would have children, he would have sons, and he would have chassidim. Other times not Lag BaOmer. When someone would come to the Mittel Rebbe, which is the son of the Alter Rebbe, the son of Reb Shneir Zalman of Ladi, his name was Dov Ber. Shneori. So he was the father-in-law and uncle of the Tzemach Tzedek. So in other times of the year, not Lag BaOmer, when they would come to the Mittler Rebbe and asking him blessings for children, his custom was he had a younger brother called Reb Chaim Avram, also of course the son of the Alter Rebbe, and he would send people to Reb Chaim Avram. When Reb Chaim Avram would get, a woman would come, or a husband on behalf of the woman would come to the brother of the Mittler Rebbe, the son of the Alter Rebbe, Reb Chaim Avram. He would put on his hat, or Rebbe says streimel, and then he would give a blessing. I think it says in Rishimus, he would say Azoi, Azoi. This is what you're telling me. My brother sent, and he would give blessings. But that's throughout the year. But in Lag BaOmer, when he went out to the field, he himself would listen to the Mittler Rebbe himself. He wouldn't pass people on to his brother. He himself would listen to the requests of people and bless people with sons and chassidim. The Rebbe is going to explain what's this idea of going out to the field and blessing. The going out to the field means where else do we find in Chassidus the idea, especially in the time of the year of Sada, is king in the field, the month of Elul. When we talk about the month of Elul, we talk about king in the field. What do we explain over there? When the king is in the field, not in the king's royal garb, with the entourage, with all the restrictions that a king has, and not anyone could approach him. He's in the field, he's casual. Then Rashain Kol Mishi everyone could go greet the king. There's an informality. You not only could you go greet the king, but he responds. He accepts everyone. With a radiant, joyful face. But when the king is in his palace, we've learned this many times. The example given about the month of Elul, then you have to have an appointment, and not everyone can get in. Not everyone can get an appointment. The difference between when the king is in the palace or the king is in the field. When the king is in his palace, he's there's much greater revelation. And because it's such a greater revelation of the king's royalty, not everyone is available for that, to have an audience with the king. He gives over his whole inner royalty. There's the palace, there's the parts of the palace, there's the clothing of the palace of the king, there's the throne. But when the king is in the field, he's dressed differently, his mood is differently, his persona, what he's projecting is a different image. Everyone could go and see him and greet him. That's the whole point. Because the king kind of dials down his royalty, and it's not revealing all the inner, he doesn't elevate himself from the people at that point. He seems to be like one of us, right? He's having a beer with everyone in the field. He's shooting bow and arrow on Lag BaOmer. He lowers from his elevated royal disconnect to go to the field. Then, because he kind of becomes more, he lowers himself down to the people. So then everyone could engage him. When he's in his palace, it's too royal for certain people. Some people, that's wild, it's scary. The king gives a reimamus, gives a yira, fear. And that's why the example of the king in the field is Barel. Because that is a time everyone can approach God. So too, the Rebbe is saying that's what happens now, Lag BaOmer. That in Lag BaOmer, the Mittler Rebbe would go out to the field as the idea to be approachable. And then he would engage all the women that he needed in their questions for blessings. And that's the reason. Based on this. Why did he go on Lag BaOmer? He could have gone on any time. Why? Because like we said before, Gal is the point where the last point of Kedusha to remind the person that there's still a separation. But like we said, Yaakov goes down and gets dressed in the clothing of Lavan. That's the boundary of the last point of holiness. To separate from here further, don't go. Mudgesh hashaychus l'sada. And therefore, we know that that's the idea of the field. The field is the king goes out to the field, the place of the commoners, a place of where there's also Esav isha sada. Sada doesn't have the protection of the palace, especially of the king's city or the palace. It's the place of Shel Hachitzonim, Esav isha sada, Esav the man in the field. This idea of going out to the field, which is also Esav's place. We have to go to the lowest places, the furthest place you could go. In such a place that in order to remind you not to go further, you have to put a monument, the gal, the heap of stones. That's how far you have to go to be able to engage another person. And therefore we saw miracles. Why? Because regularly the Mittler Rebbe sort of say this of the level of kedusha of Lag BaOmer would be beyond for us to comprehend the miracles. But there people saw the miracles. That wasn't the Mittler Rebbe's thing to do miracles. He was teaching, the Mittler Rebbe would teach the most lofty ideas of Chassidus. He would speak for hours, 8-9 hours would be a single discourse. For the Mittler Rebbe to show a miracle, that's a lower. He had to lower himself to deal with petty issues. I mean, it's not petty, God forbid, someone's need for children, but to deal that has to make a miracle. A miracle is a petty thing for a tzaddik, right? He said that the Mittler Rebbe's daughter said that my father there was miracles rolling. My grandfather there was miracles rolling on the floor. No one had time to pick it up. He said that by the Maggid as well. So just like the king in the field, it becomes more approachable. His dress is different. His attitude is different. He laughs with everyone. He's approachable by everyone. So too, that's kind of the energy of Lag BaOmer. Why do we go out to the field? To give birth to something, not just to be there. That has to have tachlis, and that gives a person the ability to engage and to bring up. I'll go one more sif. Okay, we'll do tests. This idea that the Mittler Rebbe go out to the field and bless the women, that they should have children. Their children shouldn't just be children, to be masculine Chassidim, go out there and conquer the world. This attitude of going out to the field was how the previous Rebbe was in his entire existence in America. The previous Rebbe was in America from 1940 to 1950 until his passing. It says in the Haggadah that Yaakov also had many travels. And what was his final destination? Not Eretz Yisrael. It was Mitzrayim. But he went, Onis al Piyah Dibur, we say in the Haggadah. He was forced. God said, I'm not asking you on this one. You have to go to Mitzrayim. But why did God have to force him? God should just have to tell him. Right? Yaakov is a Merkava. He's a servant of God. Yaakov Avdi. If God says to Yaakov, go to Mitzrayim, he goes to Mitzrayim. Why does he have to be forced to go? Of course, he didn't want to do what God wants. He doesn't have to be forced to do it. So the Rebbe says, yes, the idea is to go down. Of course, I'm going to go down. That's what God wants. But the idea of going down has to be forced. Meaning to say, for me to go out of a place of holiness, for me to go out of Eretz Yisrael, for Yaakov to go out of Eretz Yisrael and to go to Mitzrayim, there's a purpose, and I'm going to go for that purpose. The onus part of it, the forcing part of it, is the connect I still have to Eretz Yisrael, knowing that this is Mitzrayim. Don't think all of a sudden Mitzrayim is Eretz Yisrael. Mitzrayim is not Eretz Yisrael. Mitzrayim is Egypt, the Evros Aretz, the lowest place in the world. It's an onus. I'm there by force because a Jew belongs in Eretz Yisrael. But I have a purpose there. Of course, I'm going to go. So too was when the previous Rebbe came to America. America was a place that had nothing going on in Judaism at that time. The tremendous descent that the previous Rebbe had to do to go from what's called the higher part of the globe to the lower part of the globe. Kader is the globe. It's like a ball. That the Matan Torah wasn't even given on the Chatzi Kader Tachton. Where was Matan Torah? On the upper part of the goal of the globe. Meaning the top of the globe is Eretz Yisrael. So for him to go to a low place, to Mitzrayim, that's onus. He's forced. But that's what Hashem wants, because that's how you're going to bring Mashiach. You're not going to bring Mashiach by staying in Eretz Yisrael. Al Piyah Dibur. Like the previous Rebbe said when he came to America, we're not here for Islam because we ran away from the Nazis. We're here, there's a purpose here, to bring Torah to the other side of the globe. The previous Rebbe came here to turn the American boys and girls into Chassidim, Torah to study. The Jew, every single person should become not just Shomer Torah mitzvahs. Everyone should be in Chassidus, bringing the secrets of Torah down to the other side of the globe. Yitzil Asad is like going out to the field. He didn't just go to the city, to the capital out of his palace. To a regular city, at least it's a city, it's a settled place. You have to go out to the field. You put up a gal, but you have to go out to the field. Notwithstanding of going to the bottom part of the globe. But that's how you're going to get Mashiach. You're not going to get Mashiach if you stay in your palace, or even if you stay in the cities. To transform. Zachar, masculine, means to be people, not just that they receive from the Frierdiker Rebbe, they themselves be, that the men and women of America, the Jewish men and women of America, should become themselves conquerors of Tumah, of the worlds of impurity. Masculinity is about conquering. The idea of what's it mean to be a chassid, it's not about what you're being given. Shai Oilmas, you're going to give me 310 worlds of holiness, and it's all about what I get in return. The definition of it, meaning that you're taking the masculinity in a way of a chassid, is that you're going out to get the job done, not because of the reward. Like it says it's brought down in halacha. What's the difference in a person who buries their nails or burns their nails? When you bury your nails, that's a tzaddik, very good. You're protecting the woman, shouldn't step on the nails. But you're not ready to hurt yourself. When a person burns it, you can maybe burn yourself. I'd rather burn myself than a woman should step on a nail. He may burn himself by burning his nails, but he doesn't care. We know that if a pregnant woman were to step on nails, it could cause the woman to lose her pregnancy. Even though the likeliness to hurt yourself by trying to burn your nails after you cut them is more likely than if you buried the nails and they came out of the burial and a pregnant woman specifically stood over them, the odds are against that. But nevertheless, you're not even ready to take a chance. You don't think about yourself, you only think about the other person. I'm just going to finish with the final part. The Rebbe goes into continue talking about his kashrus, and I just want to finish off. It's a famous part of this talk. The Rebbe says like this. The Rebbe finishes off about the importance of going to the oil, and specifically of going to the oil, and therefore it's a good custom for those who write letters to the Rebbe to write a letter today on Thursday night, Friday, at Lag BaOmer. The Rebbe like this: the idea of going and praying at the oil of the Rebbe. What's part of the person's in the oil at a place of burial is the lowest part of the person. It's talking about a body in the earth. That even the lowest place is also connected to the highest place. Like we say when we go to this is part of the prayer we say when we go to a kever. We say in the merit of all the Tanoim, the rabbis of the Mishnah and the rabbis of the Talmud, Asher Itan Moishvam, that are with you in your resting place, and the merit of the righteous people buried here. From this language that we talk about, the Tanoim and the Amoraim, the Mishnah rabbis and the Talmud rabbis, when we mention the tzaddik who's buried in this specific place in Brooklyn, in Queens, from this language, we see that where a tzaddik is buried, he's not alone. Other righteous people are with the tzaddik. Tanoim, V'Amoraim, the rabbis of the Mishnah, the rabbis of the Talmud. And specifically, when we're talking about today, Lag BaOmer Rashbi, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Therefore, the Rebbe finishes off, V'chein. Hinini Latzia. The Rebbe says, I'm giving a suggestion. Shemach Rebbe Lag BaOmer, on the day of Lag BaOmer, meaning that year was the Rebbe's bringing the night before, like we're talking now, the night before. Yom Hailul Rashbi, Yom Simchasei, the day of the Rashbi, the day of his joy. Simcha Chigdal, the greatest joy that he lived. Simchas Nisuyim, Hilul, it's like a wedding. On the day of Lag BaOmer, it's not like a sad day. Even the day of Moshe Rabbeinu on the 7th of Adar, people fast. No one fasts on Lag BaOmer, like it's brought down. He didn't even want people to mourn the temple on Lag BaOmer, because it's his day of joy. It's his day of celebration. It's a famous story of the student of the Arizal, who would every day mourn the would say Nachem. Every day he would say the tefillah for the destruction of the temple. He once said it on Lag BaOmer, and Rashbi says, "Why are you raining on my party? Why are you crying? This is a day of joy. Don't even cry for the temple." It's a story brought down. Is Yisu Kulam? The Rebbe suggests that everyone should go to the oil. Shasham Nimtza Gam Rashbi. If you want to be with the Rashbi is in the oil. And you finish off blessing everyone with different blessings for different things. He brings down over here that about Ashiris and other things. So I want to bless everyone again. Thank you for joining. Good Shabbos. And everyone should take an opportunity like BaOmer to connect to our inner spirituality. Good time to write a letter to the oil if you're in New York, to go to the oil. We should see miracles and Nisim V'Neflayos, miracles and wonders. Laila Tov, everyone, and good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi. Thank you.